Hi, this is Ken and Michelle Bass.
And you're listening to the Resilient Parenting Podcast.
Well, here we are once again, aren't we?
I think so.
The last time I looked, this was us.
Yeah. You know something I discovered?
Yes.
Starting tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be living with two seniors.
And we're done. One of the seniors is going into senior 12th grade.
They're
Yeah.
going into senior.
I'm just in senior mode.
I'm not quite there. What was it at the one store? We don't have to say the store, but what's the
Senior discount?
the senior discount? Is
Yeah.
it 55?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh yeah, I'm not there yet. So I'm not yet a senior. But
But you've been called out on it before.
just because I have beautiful silver hair.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, I'll have two seniors in the house. Our youngest is going to be a senior.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And then there's you. Speaking of timeless,
Yeah.
our next guest is has a lot of great information to share, and yeah.
And even as a senior, I was able to understand it.
What? I didn't say anything bad about being a senior. Are you not a senior?
I am a senior.
You have been a senior for quite a while.
You don't have to elaborate. Oh my gosh.
I didn't think it was it was a bad thing when someone thought I was a senior and I wasn't quite there yet.
Well,
You know what stinks
Yeah.
about the whole thing? Because there
What?
was a whole story that went with it. I'm not going to go into detail. But not only was I called a senior, but then I didn't even get the stupid discount.
Strangely enough, when I go in that same store, I say, "Are you going to give me the senior discount?" And they look at me, "Well, okay, if you insist."
Yeah, you don't mind being a senior when you save some money.
That's true. You know what the best part of being a senior is?
Oh boy, what's that?
I won't remember any of this tomorrow.
We are welcomed by Vashti Summervill, parent coach and therapeutic consultant. She's the owner of Family Healing Pathways and contracts with the Educational Connections. And we're super excited to have you join us.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we've known you a long time. You are a local musician.
I am. But I like to do many things. So.
You do. Well, and I was, before getting ready for this episode, I did some research and I was like, wow, she's been busy. Not only do you have your healing pathways, family healing pathways, and then contract with the Educational Connections, but you also have a book, Letters from the Wilderness of Modern Parenting, that you collaborated with the artist Wendy Blickenstaff. So lots going on. Don't worry, everyone. We'll keep everything in the show notes so that you won't miss anything.
Okay. So I can catch up later. Is that what you're saying? Okay. Sure.
The show notes are really for Ken.
Yeah.
So tell us about you. Tell everyone what you're up to, what you do.
Yeah, so I was a music educator for years, and sometimes people say, "Well, how did you take that path from education into the parent coaching and the consulting?" And what I say is concurrently, I was witnessing a lot of changes within students, right? I was seeing a lot more behavioral issues, a lot of students experiencing more depression and anxiety. And then, I have some lived experience as a parent, parenting adolescents through some pretty tough mental health challenges. And so I just was observing all this and thought, how can I be that person we needed in our most challenging times? And obviously there's a big need in the world, right? There's just it's a much harder world to grow up in, and it's a much harder world to parent in, as you know, probably one of the reasons you have this podcast. And so I made the shift and went back to school to be a parent coach. And then the level of crises calls I was getting, they were pretty severe crises, and I thought this can't be the only answer. Yeah, I can't just coach someone through this. So that's when I added therapeutic consulting to really try to become as expert as possible about resources that exist for treatment for adolescents and young adults across the country. So I spend quite a bit of time touring and just developing a knowledge base there. But I'm really passionate about the parent coaching and what's within parents' control.
What exactly do you mean by therapeutic consulting or counseling?
So, yeah, so these are families that really have hit a place where they've exhausted local resources, right? The family system is exhausted. There's nothing is working locally. And so we kind of, through educational connections, we do that matchmaking. And you go online to Google something, it's very overwhelming, right? It's a really overwhelming thing, and anyone can make a pretty website, but knowing what really happens in that program and who do they best serve. I mean, it's a really complex thing to navigate. Um, so our job is to make that easier for parents. We don't choose, but we sort of do this matchmaking. We have a really extensive process where we collaborate with, the family's care team and try to really pick a program that serves that profile of kid, that the current community is a really good fit for that kid, where we can see that family getting what they need going through that process. And we tend to focus on programs with a pretty robust family programming component, because it's often when your child is suffering, it's always a parallel journey with parents. Like, we have our own work to do, our kids have their work to do, and that's true of every single family, no matter what level of crisis or challenge.
So when I was looking on your website, I did see that you have a online class, free parenting class. And you were sharing a little bit before we started that you put this together before the pandemic or during the pandemic. I'm trying to remember. Can you share a little bit about
Yeah,
that?
I did it during the pandemic, partly because we were all a little stir crazy, locked up, right? And I have a very techie husband who's like, I can borrow a teleprompter and we can do all this cool stuff. And so it was really fun to sort of synthesize the parent coaching curriculum that I had been, working on for years. Obviously, I'm always standing on the shoulders of giants. Everything I teach is borrowed, stolen, whatever, just kind of put together from the hundreds of books I read and the podcast.
Hmm.
So it was kind of just synthesizing that into a digestible little course. I called it the Parenting Reboot Challenge. Because I think it probably got a little more challenging for everyone during COVID, because the problems or challenges or communication things that were there that needed work just became magnified because we're all locked up together. So I created that course, and it's just out there on my website for free, and I hope people will use it.
Well, that's wonderful. And you actually brought some things to share with our listeners today. So our listeners can learn a little bit today. And then if they want to learn more, they can get a hold of you. They can go to your website and check out the reboot. So what do you have for us?
Well, I love the title of your podcast. It very much resonates with me because I talk a lot about what does it mean to create conditions that cultivate resilience, and how do we parent for resilience? And they don't teach us that in the What to Expect When You're Expecting book. And like I said at the beginning of the podcast, we're in kind of the wild west of parenting and growing up. There's all these cultural and societal things going on. I mean, it's just a whole new world for figuring this out. So I think a lot of it, we've also seen the pendulum swing to where we're talking about mental health more, which is great, right? We growing up, I'm going to guess with you guys as well, that's just not something that was discussed. Parents weren't really in tune with your emotional health, and schools could care less. It's just like, do what I say because I'm the adult and get through it. So I think we talk about mental health a lot more than we used to, which is good, but we also have a lot of anxiety around it, right? We even know in our own community, we've had clusters of suicides. I mean, there's been really scary things that have happened. There was a time in my life I knew no one impacted by suicide, and now I don't know anyone who has not been impacted by it. So I think what happens as parents, we have this elephant in the room, right? This possibility of self-harm or something really horrible happening. And so we make a lot of our parenting decisions from this place of understandable fear and anxiety. But I think we're often inadvertently feeding the problems because we are sort of missing that sweet spot, right? We are either too permissive and softening the world too much, or, teenagers can kind of be mean, depressed kids can kind of be mean. And so then we jump over from, softening the world too much, being too permissive, to this like, we're laying the hammer down, we're going to be the adult, to being a little more authoritarian. And we miss that sweet spot where we are in tune with what's happening emotionally, but we're taming our own reactivity and anxiety, right? We're not overreacting, we're not underreacting. Very hard place to be. It's a moving target. But I think we're kind of missing that sweet spot, which also includes the ability to hold some boundaries, right? To be the bumpers in the bowling alley so that we're not afraid to hold what I call life-giving boundaries, boundaries that lead to our end goal of raising capable, resilient, independent, compassionate adults. And so how do we do that, right? It's a big ask. I mean, your parents, right? Anxiety comes with the territory. So it's educating our kids that, all right, 50% or more of life's emotions are uncomfortable. And it doesn't mean because you have some anxiety that you are ill, right? There's a normal amount of life suffering and life anxiety in these things. So it's sort of reframing that so we're not in a panic at the first sign of any discomfort. Our kids uncomfortable, we're panicking. So it's figuring out how to kind of educate ourselves and our kids like, okay, this is actually normal and it's okay. Instead of greeting our kids suffering with like a panic that then teaches the kid to be afraid of whatever's going on, right? So, coupled with that, and this is backed with research, is how do we what does support look like, right? There's a line between supporting and enabling maybe dysfunctional behavior. So, out of Yale, I don't know if you've ever looked up Ellie Leibovitz and the SPACE training. So, SPACE stands for Supportive Parenting of Anxious Childhood Emotions. He has books and he's fantastic. And he talks about the formula for support is support equals validation plus an expression in the parent's confidence in the child's ability to handle the distress. So, what would that look like in real life, right? Like, okay, I can see what is happening right now is really, really hard for you. And I'm confident in your ability to handle it. I look forward to your ideas, right? And so, kind of inviting your child to be the solver of their own problems instead of always looking for something external. And so, how do we do that as parents? It's often really carefully crafted guiding questions. No teen ever said, "Please give me another lecture," or "Wow, that lecture you gave me solved everything for me," right? And I'm the queen of lectures, right? When I teach this stuff, I tell people all the time, I'm pointing the finger at myself. I'm in it, right? This is hard to live. But it's these guiding questions, right? Maybe that statement of this is hard and I'm confident in your ability. What's the next best decision you can make for yourself? What are your ideas before just letting our anxiety spill over and offering all of our problem solving, right? Because when we're anxious, I've distilled it to four modes. We go into problem solving, cheerleader, distractor, or denier. And none of those really cultivate resilience, right? But when we can invite our child to insight and show them, like, we have confidence, I think that you have what's within you that is needed to solve this, that cultivates resilience.
That also works for the parents themselves too, in their own relationship, right?
This works in all human relationships, I think, Ken.
Yeah. So you could pass that on. They could see by example for what you're doing as a parent between each other.
Oh, 100%. Like your actions in your modeling, we all know it's way more powerful than your words, right? And once again, we're never going to be a perfect parent. Our kid's never going to be the perfect kid. But part of this modeling is like, okay, maybe you greet a situation with extreme anxiety and problem solving and lecturing. It happened, right? So then you go back and you say, you know what? I was just reflecting and I was not being the parent I meant to be in that moment. I wasn't being the person I meant to be in that moment. If I could have a do-over, this is how I might handle that. There is so much power in that exchange. Who cares about the mistake? That was a really powerful modeling.
And I love that you brought that up because I'm a TBRI practitioner, and one of the things that we do a lot is redos, and being able to model that we step in it as well, and that we can learn from it, and actually to take the time to acknowledge that the relationship with our child is so important that we're willing to be vulnerable and try again is so strengthening. Like if we're always trying to avoid conflict, we're avoiding growth of like that relationship. The other thing that what you're talking about reminds me of we talked at during another episode about praise versus encouragement, and it's about finding ways for the child to find their own like value of themselves and what they bring instead of getting it from other people. So we talked about praise junkies, where if we're, always getting external validation, then, you know, we don't find it within ourselves. It just reminds me of that. Like you have, Glenda says you have the power all along. You just have to believe. Like it's like you got this. I believe you got this. I mean, how cool is that to be able to say, yeah, this is tough. And I'm here, and I know you'll be able to figure this out without immediately trying to save them from pain.
And I would actually dovetail on that a little bit. And I might get this wrong. We're gonna have to look this up, but it comes out of positive psychology, and it's the VAI or VIA character strengths assessment. It's something like that. And there's actually a great printable that talks about like I think it's like 24 innate characteristics, and we each have a certain number of strengths, and those characteristics have subcategories. And what I say with praise is like, okay, it's a lot. If I just say, good job, you're so awesome, you did great on that, that's very different than saying, wow, what you just did showed a lot of perseverance. It showed courage. It showed grit. You're connecting what they did to an innate character trait, which is building the narrative, right? And that's
Mhm.
cool because we can't take away our kids' depression. We can't instill motivation. We're powerless to do that. So, how are our actions shaping the internal narrative that they have? Because the only thing that really has power is the ideas that any individual generates for themselves, right? That's where the power is. It's not the ideas I give you. So, looking at when we jump into problem solving, what might that be doing to the narrative that our child is creating about themselves, right? And it's like, I'm not capable. I always need someone else to solve my problems. Look how anxious my parent is in this situation. This must be really bad, right? And that could be, I mean, we're guessing, but this could be the narrative that is developing. And so I think alongside this is taking every age and stage of development and saying, what can I turn over to my kid that is developmentally appropriate? We have a whole generation of kids that can't have conversations with adults because, you don't have a landline where you say, hello, Mr. Bass, this is Vashti. Could I please speak with Michelle? No, you're texting. Everybody's got, so they're losing this skill. So ordering food in a restaurant. Maybe they have to get a physical for a sport. Have them at a certain age, and congruent with their own development, which everyone develops at different phases, fill out the paperwork. Call and make the dental appointment. Like every year, kind of assessing what can I turn over to my kid? And there's a little bit of a movement with Let Grow. Have you seen letgrow.org?
This sounds familiar. Tell us more about it.
So it's really like reclaiming some independence in childhood. And Jonathan Haidt, author of The Anxious Generation, is one of the co-founders. And it's a great website. There's resources for schools and parents on there. And it's sort of these ideas of like, what independent thing are you going to turn over? Because his whole premise is we have overprotected our kids in the real world and underprotected them in the digital world. So it's a fantastic website, letgrow.org, I believe. So double check that, and you can put it in the show notes.
Absolutely. And you also mentioned his book, The Anxious Generation. I actually am listening to that on my way to work every day. It's really good. I highly recommend that as well. If
I
you're
think he's spot on.
absolutely. So lots of really good information. You already shared some things that you can do. One of the things we always like to say is, well, what can parents do today? What can they do right now? One of the things is, I guess for us as parents, we need to reevaluate what we're doing, like pause before we go to saving.
Pausing and thinking and
Yeah.
reevaluating. Yeah.
Yeah, what would you say?
Yeah, the power in the pause for sure. Because also it's like, how do I make my kid feel? Right. And that's something we don't pause to think about because we have our parenting hat on, right? We're in the mode of parenting and we have so much to accomplish and knowledge to impart that we sometimes forget to say, what is my child's experience of me? And I love the Maya Angelou quote, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will not forget how you made them feel. So how do we make our kids feel? And I did an experiment on my website. There's 72 episodes of a podcast. They're not on any of the platforms anymore, but you can see them on the website. But I did one on the relationship bank account, which is in essence the what is the accumulation of goodwill in the relationship. And we need a healthy balance because we are inevitably going to take withdrawals. And this comes out of the Gottman Institute, like all their relationship studies. So I did an exercise where I wrote out a script of what do I say to my kid in a day? And of course, this was, I think, when my kids were in high school. And so, what do I say before school? That limited time. And then the limited times after school, before dinner, right before bed, whatever. And it was just this list of, I mean, like, did you talk to your math teacher? It's cold outside. Get your coat. Did you get your lunch? Did you unload the dishwasher? I told you to unload the dishwasher. Blah, 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 blah. That's all. It made me sweat to read this thing out. And I thought, oh my gosh, being my kid is really not that pleasant. And so it's taking that pause, being aware of what, how am I making my kid feel? And I think the two things parents could really do is work to not parent from fear and anxiety as best you can. So taking that breath and when you see yourself going into an anxiety spin and catastrophizing the future, how are you going to put a little bit of space in between that feeling and what your next action is? I think that would be really important. And then greeting your kid with the element of surprise. Give them something different. Change the dance, right? That's all you have to do. Like they're expecting a lecture or a whole big list of questions, and you just change that and surprise them, right? And instead maybe it's they, unload something terrible that's going on and you don't give them a whole lecture or list. You just simply say, "Gosh, that sounds tough, and I'm confident in your ability to handle this. What's the next best thing you can do?" Boom, that's all.
Of course, you said, like greet them with surprise. And I was thinking of all of the TikTok videos I love to watch where they actually like scare them.
I thought it was like
I
a bowl of
do.
ice cream or something. I didn't.
I'm seeing, as you're talking, I'm already seeing like different things because I do come from sometimes a place of anxiety. I thought with the fourth child that I would be less anxious, but I'm a social worker, so some of the things I've seen makes me I've found to be more cautious and more anxious about things, but that's not helpful. And so to be able to pause and I will also say that when I have let go of that and let like opened it up for exploration and what they come up with, it's amazing, fascinating. The problem solving and the resilience is way better than getting the answer, what I think is the answer
Yeah,
from
they
me.
become they become your teacher in that moment, and what they're coming up with is actual real learning and growth as opposed to things we're firing at them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're dealing with the fifth child here, so I'm.
Well, and it's just not to bring up you know gender or anything, but I have heard rumors that men like to solve problems. They like to they don't, a lot of men, I shouldn't say all men. My man likes to solve problems, and how many times do I say I'm a grown fast woman, I can do it myself.
It's kind of how we were raised back in the day, and it's difficult sometimes for the person of my type to let go and to give you more space at times, I think.
Yeah, that was just another area. I mean, we're talking about parenting, but I was just thinking about the parallel process of just even within our relationship. How many times have I said I can do it myself,
Mhm.
or if I need help, I'll ask for it. And you're like, I'm just trying to be nice.
Yeah,
And then how many times do we do that to our kids?
true.
It's so true. It's that's like I say, this stuff works in all your relationships, I believe, right? It's kind of just the study of human nature and communication and emotions and reactivity and all those things. And I think that's one last point to make with what parents can do. So when you do need to hold a boundary, be credible with your word, right? You have a known consequence and follow through with it. Don't pile on to it. Don't add on. But like if you lose your technology for a day, just be calm and it's gone for a day. Don't then say, well, now it's 2 days. Well, now it's 2 weeks. Now it's 2 months. Now it's 2 years. You can't follow through with that, right? So just stick with the day and deliver the consequence with low energy. Just one sentence. Hey, you knew this was happening, and be done. Instead of adding all this negative energy. Like we don't want to energize or charge that, right? Keeping
Mhm.
that neutral and then save the energy for the positive things going on. Not in a praisey way, but where you're connecting, right, to the kids' innate character traits that help them accomplish something, but energize those, be animated with those and be a little more neutral, matter of fact, when you're holding a boundary. Nope, this is how it is. And then my other two favorite words, disengage and deny audience. So as soon as you've said this is what it is, nevertheless, this is what we're doing. Bye. And
Going to bed now.
exactly. And the last thing I'll say for Idaho families, there's a great, relatively new organization called the Youth Mental Wellness Alliance. Have you interviewed them? Are you familiar with them? So it's started by a group of parents. And if you look at the beginning of each of those words, Youth Mental Wellness Alliance, you, me, we all.org. I think that's so clever. And really, they've done a fantastic job of just sort of figuring out what do parents need and sort of compiling resources. They have a newsletter, they sponsor different events, and their website is just full of resources for parents. And all parents, but there's a lot specific to Idaho. So I would really encourage parents to get involved with that group and check out the offerings that they have.
I love that. Thank you so much. And thank you for sharing your knowledge and information on this. We will definitely put everything in the show notes, all of the episodes that you have on your website from your podcast, and then also information about how to get the new book, Letters from the Wilderness of Modern Parenting. And yeah, thank
Yeah.
you so much for sharing your time with us this
Thanks,
morning.
Vashti. Appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me, and it was just a pleasure to reconnect with both of you.
This podcast is brought to you by the Idaho Children's Trust Fund.